Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to the Silent Hill commentary, where we have now acquired the Plate of the Hatter. Meanwhile, that little tentacle monster that later makes a reappearance in Silent Hill 3, which drags Heather into the sewer, is, feasting on a little whatever, spooky nurses. Eat shotgun. I got a shotgun, dun 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 dun. A slate. Nothing more than that. Set up for another puzzle. The darkness is encroaching. But yeah, we basically just have a very long, stretchy commute of gameplay and a few tasty little cutscenes right towards the end. So I suppose, with little else to really talk about other than, just the very sparse level design, let's get back to it, really. And I suppose, despite the rather large expanse of an area that you have to explore, I suppose it can make the order in which you sort of tackle everything to be a bit of a, I suppose perhaps a bit of a pain for newcomers if you don't know how to effectively comb the area, but I will say that the Alchemilla hospital does hit the nice blend between its smoky aesthetics being confusing but navigable. And while not quite as, stringent or, as, how would I put this, as structured as the Midwich Elementary School, I don't know, I feel like it does still create like a lot of interesting set pieces, even if some of it is set up for much later on in the game. I mean, I'm not necessarily too sure whether or not that was intentional design, or maybe this might have been, and again, I think I might have brought this up in previous commentaries, but fuck it, might as well repeat myself here for those who are not in the know. Stab. Stab. But, yeah, in terms of how some video game designers tend to design their levels, apart from hiding their corpses in the room, hoping nobody will notice, in a monster closet where they team up and stab you. Yeah, oftentimes, when game designers are least experienced, they'll usually put their, less experienced efforts around about the middle point of the game so that it doesn't harm the first and final impressions that you'll have of the game. In fact, more often than not, usually the first levels will be designed last so that, they have the most experience, know how to properly teach players how to play the game. And, yeah, they'll usually do likewise for the last sections of the game, where, again, they have the most experience and they know how to design easy and challenging levels, as the player approaches them. Which is sort of how I see this part of Alchemilla Hospital, really. It's kind of the middle point in the game, and its design is still, brilliantly well handled. It's just that it also feels the most, video gamey would probably be the wrong term, but it does feel the most traditional in terms of its overall dungeon design, as I brought up in Midwich Elementary School, which I feel is where, at least in terms of the game design philosophy, is where Silent Hill really derived a lot of inspiration out of its, out of its gameplay philosophy. And to kind of talk about the nurses a little bit further, as Harry continues to get stabbed by their butter knives. Yeah, depending on which, cardigans the nurses are wearing, they do actually have different degrees of health. Green ones pack the most health, blue ones have less health. I'm trying to determine how many shots it usually takes. I mean, again, you usually take like 3 shotgun blasts down like a regular green nurse. Well, regular green nurse, they're pretty much all over the shop. But I believe it's 2 just for the blue nurses, and yeah, you might be noticing that we missed a certain weapon inside the generator room. Don't worry, it's nothing to worry about. We'll be back for it later. But regardless of such, to further discuss things related to the enemies, and I don't want this to turn into like a slight rant kind of thing, but yeah, I mentioned that apart from Masahiro Ito being the monster designer, that Naoko Sato was also on creature designing duties, and yeah, you might be noticing that that compared to later Silent Hill games that would take like a much heavier inspiration from the likes of Francis Bacon and very abstract artworks in order to design its creatures, which pretty much stock from Silent Hill 2 onwards, you might be noticing that, I'd say next to actually Silent Hill Downpour, that these are some of the more terrestrial looking enemies in the entire series, and putting aside, the whole psychological thing of, oh no, it's somebody's mind that alters the astral plane of Silent Hill, yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of the more terrestrial-looking enemies was probably more down to Sato's influence as opposed to, Ito's, which, again, isn't to necessarily critique Ito's artistic abilities, because, the man does know decent creature design, But I feel like it does sort of create a bit of an influence standpoint in the sense that, you know, a lot of the creature design, despite being a little bit more terrestrial in nature, also feels a little bit more interesting in terms of, you know, what sort of enemies you fight and how interestingly you kind of defeat them. Whereas I feel like later on, and especially as, Ito's style on Silent Hill became definitive, a lot of people's attempts to copy that sort of design kind of lacked in that sort of creativity, and that's not to say that Ito was without creative designs as well. I mean, the pendulum enemies from Silent Hill 3 were quite interesting, but yeah. I sort of feel like that despite the designs probably feeling a little bit more, standard and terrestrial in nature, probably, I don't know. They just struck me as like a slightly more interesting sort of enemy, because it hits the nice blend between resembling reality but not quite, which I feel that Silent Hill, as a franchise, has always been very great at, but again, the further abstract you create your enemies, I suppose, to put it in very layman's terms, the more fantastical it becomes, and as a result it's, I don't know, it becomes somewhat easier to sort of, put by the wayside. And I mean, to be honest, it's not even an issue that's necessarily, entirely related to Silent Hill. I mean, there are a lot of horror games that try and take the whole sort of abstract influence, and, kind of wind up looking ridiculous. And again, this can be the same with terrestrial enemies, where they just go, oh, blood, pale, white backslicked eyes, and that's pretty much woo scary, but I don't know, it's, there's a certain level of artistry to the design, and, yeah, when you hit that just right, it can be either quite frightening, or it can be, well, again, I suppose if I can, if I can, dumb it down to rap with you, brother, it's pretty much too spoopy, it makes me go poopy. Room 302. I'm sure this will never come into play in any other Silent Hill game. A VCR-ski? Used to watch video-ski? Which isn't a viable medium-ski anymore-ski? I don't know why I'm doing this voice. It's not even like we are in Russia. But yeah, Room 302. Keep an eye on that. And I'm talking specifically in this game as well, not Silent Hill 4, which, yeah, fun fact, was actually the first, I mean, if we want to get technical here, it was the first commentary that I ever really did. It was more just like a one-part test video that I think I did, but yeah, it was pretty much to see if I could hack it, and then I did, and then I did Silent Hill 1. So there you go. In hindsight, I maybe should have actually tried tackling Silent Hill 4 for the anniversary years, but whatever. I mean, to be honest, I still decided that Silent Hill 1 needed the coat of paint, and was, probably the best commentary I could really use the excuse to do, because, I mean, yeah, I did also consider doing, like, a couple of other, like, commentary rejigs on games like, say, The Matrix Path of Neo, Doom 3, and, I mean, I was technically waiting for, like, the, Gex Remaster trilogy to come out, but, so I could do, like, Gex Enter the Gecko, but, I mean, to be honest, if I was gonna do that, then, I probably would have ended up, redoing every single commentary I've done if I had slight issues with them, so Silent Hill 1 was pretty much it, and, yeah. Although, I mean, to kind of go slightly off topic for a second, in terms of the Gex, trilogy remaster, what the fuck happened to that? Like, I mean, it was announced, last year in 2023, and we haven't heard anything about it since, so, anything still going on? I mean, the franchise, I believe is still technically owned by Square Enix. It wasn't sold off in the, the whole sort of, like, Eidos, publishing merger, so, really, what's going on? Well, I suppose it's neither here nor there in this case. Ooh, the health. She has been looking, a little downer. Whatever. It's not really anything worth thinking about. Anyway, we're going to be using a little bit of teleporting as we jump over towards the puzzle. And there was a scary noise. Yeah, anyway. I pretty much said all that you need to do in order to solve the puzzle. Pretty much use it clockwise, and remember, sky on a sunny day, blue clouds over a hill, blue... It's pretty much a match the colors puzzle. The only real, esoteric nature of it is just how they word the puzzle, so, yeah, pay close attention. And, unlike later Silent Hill games, there is no riddle difficulty in this game, so, what you see is what you get. But, to be honest, I feel like, even if you're not, one for very, esoteric puzzles, you can generally kind of figure it out, just, either by finagling around with it for a little bit, or at least, having basic deduction skills, so, yeah, I have faith that you can solve these if you're anybody who does anything, really. What plate do you want to put? There we go. And pretty soon, actually, we'll be finally making a bit of progress. Seeing new worlds across the way. But in the meantime, though, I think it's time for a little bit more trivia as we make more commutes. And this one is specifically related to one of the CGI designers, and indeed, well, a guy who will later go on to set up his own company, Takeyoshi Sato. Yeah, the guy that created all the CG models and the, you know, nice little modeling work for the cutscenes and the portraits of Harry and his health icon. Yeah, that was all thanks to Takeyoshi Sato, who was working for Konami at the time. And he based a lot of those models off the development stuff of Team Silent, so you might notice that, again, if you pay at least close attention to, like, a lot of the, you know, cranial structures and, you know, the way in which a lot of characters look, yeah, they tend to have a bit of a Japanese sort of, look towards them. Not necessarily in terms of, you know, complexion or race or anything, but, you know, just in terms of, sort of how they were designed, really. Because, I mean, again, the stuff at Team Silent were pretty much all he really had to base them on. But that also isn't really relevant. The more relevant thing is that he also learned that he wouldn't be credited for his hard work because Konami wanted to credit a senior staffer in his place for work that they didn't actually do, I suppose because when it comes to Japanese working environments, seniority is very important, and I suppose they just place the senior staffer to get all the credit, despite the fact that they did work they didn't actually did. So yeah, that was pretty much the primary decision, that he had to leave Konami, form his own CG studio, and then later go on to partner with the Team Silent and Konami to work on Silent Hill 2, just so he would get the credit that he deserved. Whether that was out of spite, or whether or not he just truly liked what he was doing, I have no idea, but I mean, it is fucking telling of the man that, you know, the fact that he later went on to work on Silent Hill 2 and set up his own company is, yeah. I mean, it was pretty honorable of the guy, and honestly, Takeyoshi Sato does great work. Yeah, my kudos to the man, despite all the pressures that he would have had to, you know, take care of. Pachoo, pachoo, I shoot my pistol at you. Just remembering back to the old days when I, coined the term cunt punt. Delicious. And, by the way, well, I mean, for anybody thinking that they're going to be getting some sexy nurse action, don't worry, if you try and look up these nurses' dresses, no, you're not going to be seeing anything other than, you know, unrendered, stuff, really. So, you know, you're not going to be seeing anything. I'm sure Masahiro Ito's boner was ruined when he saw Naoko Sato's work, going, no, how dare you? You ruined my sexual fantasy. Oh, now I'll just have to design some abstract, triangle-shaped man to ease the pain of my sexual frustrations. Although, to kind of go a little bit meta for a second, kind of speaking of Pyramid Head, yeah, Masahiro Ito isn't really a big fan of the character in recent years due to his overuse in the series, so, yeah, that's, quite odd, really. But then again, I guess I can sort of see it, but, you know, characters are popular for a reason, and there's a big fucking reason why the Valtio never took off, and will probably never appear again, unless, of course, the cult is involved in some way or fashion, but given the way in which, you know, they seem to just be remaking Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill F just seems to be doing fucking whatever and going doolally, who knows, really? Those are cynical thoughts that I may possibly get into if I have fuck all to talk about in regards to anything else, but I suppose, if nothing else, the two big things that we're really looking to get into in terms of our end goals for the Alchemilla Hospital, I mean, apart from this little, Grim Reaper's list right here, is that the Otherworld talking, or is that meant to be, again, in realistic terms, like a list of people meant to be transferred to the hospice? Which, I mean, I suppose for those not in the know of the term, it's pretty much just a little care facility where they try and make people with terminal illness in their last days a little bit more comfortable when they pretty much know that they're fucked. That might possibly be a term not colloquial towards any other part of the world, but yeah, that's kind of what I always knew about. But I suppose in terms of anything else, I forgot my original tangent. Thank Nomino. Oh, damn it, I hate it when I forget things. You know, just like who I am, and what I'm doing here. And, the audience that I'm talking to. Who are you again? Oh, right, now I remember what I was doing, silly me. Yeah, our own goals for the area. Yeah, we're pretty much heading towards, the basement, my dear. Well, primarily because there seems to be some rather creepy things in the basement, my dear. But in turn, there is also the fact that we got the basement storeroom key, and, Cheryl. Could Cheryl be there? Well, that, I mean, also, I guess also the fact that Dahlia told us to investigate this place thoroughly, and, yeah, why not? Let's have a little bit of an explore. But of course, our second place, and pretty much, you know, the actual endpoint where the part will conclude, is also the examination room, which we were in before, where we met Dr. Kaufman. But in turn, also the place where, well, just beyond that door, we heard somebody running away when we tried to access it. I'm pretty sure if it was a monster, it would have busted the door down and tried to take a delicious chomp out of Harry Mason's brains, but, you know, it's, neither here nor there in this case. But I suppose, once again, to talk about the creepiness of the puppet nurses, and puppet doctors by extension. Again, I sort of already mentioned, like, the external factors, you know, vulnerability, horror, and whatever, but again, it does kind of perfectly match up with how children would otherwise see medical professionals. Again, they're all sort of working in unison in order to, you know, operate on their patients, but by that same token, though, again, the fact that they all seem to work in unison and all seem very uniform in a hive mind kind of way, you know, as indicated with the flesh growth on their backs, it creates a very interesting parasitic relationship, which is, again, fitting, but I mean, it just sort of makes sense to me, really. I mean, I guess to sort of open up on my childhood a little bit more when I went for a bit of an operation when I was 3 years old, yeah, that's kind of exactly what I saw when I was a wee lad. I mean, I remember just waking up, seeing all these doctors surrounding me, my vision kind of reddened and blurred after having, like, a bit of an operation on my eyes, and, yeah, I was screaming my head off and panicking, so, yeah, poor Solidus-Skully. He was a bit of a frightened wee lad, and it kind of contributed to a bit of a fear of hospitals that I have. I mean, which is a bit counterintuitive, because, I mean, as you get older, the body starts to break down, and you'll need more medical operations as you proceed in the future. You know, as decay and entropy lay toil towards your body, and, yeah. So, hospitals. They're scary, but, you need them. So anyway, to make me feel better, I don't know, if you have any stories about hospitals, post them in the comments section so I can read your fears and I can relate to your personal traumas and vendettas, and, yeah, hopefully we'll find the more jovial part of hospitals. You know, preferably without the whole sort of, emergency 24 hours thing of just watching people suffering in hospital going, and seeing people in pain and, you know, weeping depressingly, and then it's going along like, oh no, it's truly inspirational because people are getting cured from evil and whatever. Except no, it's all about misery and pain, and I don't know how people can stomach those shows. Whatever. If only there was some jelly beans that could soothe my pain in this decrepit environment. You know, it seems we have more bottles of PTV that you can't really see, primarily because of the murky PS1 graphics, but yeah, Psychic TV is in those bottles, and you also see boxes of it inside the basement storeroom, so, yeah, it seems that if Sybil was doing some investigating around here, she probably would have found out who was responsible for the drug ring. I wonder if Dr. Kaufman knew anything about this. Scuff marks. Down here. Honestly though, the more I'm thinking about the Alchemilla Hospital section, the more I'm seeing a lot more parallels and ties towards Forbidden Siren, really, because, you know, I mean, this is also, like, the area where you find, Miyako Kajiro, which is a bit of a spoiler in and of itself, given which Miyako Kajiro I'm talking about, but, yeah, it's, similar revelations are to be found here, as we see this grate with vines on it. Almost as if there was a secret they wanted to keep buried down here. Oh well, good thing we have some disinfectant alcohol and, a lighter, so that we can save the day, by which I mean investigate. Also, I believe this is probably the best angle that you'll really get in order to see these boxes with the label Psychic TV on them. So, yeah, that pretty much confirms that, this was pretty much the drug, and, in case you were wondering, like, whether or not, you know, Psychic TV is there to inhibit latent psychic abilities, well, it induces a hallucinogenic state, and that's all I'll really say about it for now, but, yeah, it does make me wonder whether or not this was either something that Kaufman was dealing out on the side, or whether or not this was something that he was distributing, for more nefarious reasons. Suppose we'll have to see. And this little area down here does get rather creepy, and not just specifically because they pack it rather densely with enemies. That kind of comes to the point of monster closets, really, which is sort of why I mentioned earlier the whole aspect of, you know, game design feeling a little bit more murky and very video gamey in this section, for the lack of a better phrase. But, I don't know. I mean, they had the assets, might as well put them to use, and I think it works quite effectively here. Which, again, given the fact that there is stuff down here, it does kind of make me wonder why they would need so many people down here just for one patient. Or how Kaufman got them to work for them. Then again, I suppose Psychic TV could have been responsible for their current situation, so, is there some more terrestrial explanation for the White Claudia and the Psychic Television? Well, maybe we'll find Throbbing Gristle down here, talk to the hamburger lady, talk to our day, and, you know, just, sort of see how things go. And I suppose in terms of more musical recommendations for anything else, Throbbing Gristle, slash Psychic TV also, with, you know, I think they share the band member Genesis Porridge, actually, but, yeah, if you want to listen to some industrial music that is very Silent Hill-esque, Throbbing Gristle slash, you know, Psychic TV. I highly recommend it. Do it now, otherwise you'll, fall victim to glass smashing over here. Seems somebody was trying to get rid of some evidence, because they thought they got rid of that! Kablam. A videotape? Could Harry have found the ring? Well, maybe. I mean, this was actually, no, the novel would have technically come out at this point, so, scratch that thought. And I mean, they did technically derive influence from, you know, Coin Locker Babies by Ryu Murakami for an earlier segment, so it wouldn't be too out of the realm of possibility for them to take influence from the ring. So, yeah, never mind, really. In any case, though, it's time for a cutscene, so, Revelations behold.
What's this? Looks like someone's been here.
At long last, we finally have a face to put to a name. Yes, that mysterious girl we saw in the boiler room was named Alessa, who was currently residing in the Green Lion Antique Shop. Now that we finally have a face to put to a name, it seems that, we gotta track her down. She's gotta know something. Perhaps that girl knows where Cheryl is. And I suppose while we make a bit of a lengthy commute back towards room 302 and can finally see what's on that videotape, yeah, it's time for a bit more trivia. That's namely to do with the fact that Alessa's name herself actually went through a few revisions. I believe one of the before finalization names was going to be Asia in reference to I think it was like some other literary thing before they eventually settled on Alessa, but there was actually a much earlier version than both of those names, which I believe you can access on the cutting room floor, which actually showcased that in one of the files, one of her original portrait names was actually called Pamela. Which is quite strange. I'm wondering if that's in reference to anything specifically. I mean, it might have just been a placeholder name, because, I mean, there are actually a couple of other placeholder names for a few certain other characters. To talk about Cheryl specifically, like, and I'm guessing this probably wasn't going to be used in-game unless they wanted Harry's wife to be Japanese initially, but, yeah, one of Cheryl's initial names was, Biriko. I'm guessing that might have been a placeholder, but then again, I'm not really too sure, like, I mean, I can't remember if it was Silent Hill 3 or if it was maybe just one of the developer comments that, apparently Jodie Mason, who was, you know, Harry's wife that you saw in the intro cutscene in part 1, like, either had an interest in Japanese culture or that she might have been part Japanese herself. Which might have explained why she looked very, very feminine, compared to anything else, so, I don't know, really, it might have played something of an influence. Oh, I mean, then again, it might still technically be canon, because, I mean, Heather Mason in Silent Hill 3 does also, like, have a few, you know, Japanese influences, wielding a katana, using the whole Sailor Moon transformation, with the sexy beam or whatever, so, I mean, there's that, but what is this? The Hammer of Justice! We've got it. If only Heather used the Hammer of Justice as her ultimate weapon. Moon, prism, power, etc. magical girl thing. Yeah, it's also quite telling that Team Silent usually save like a lot of the Japanese stuff in Western... Well, I mean, I'm kind of drawing a bit of a parallel between both them and Sonic Team from, you know, the Sonic series, obviously, but... Yeah, I've also noticed that whenever it comes to Japanese stuff, they usually tend to keep a lot of their culture, like, out of it, really. Like, I mean, the only times it ever really shows up is either through unintentional, like, you know, Japanese cultural things, or, you know, if they save up for joke endings specifically, like, I mean, in the case of Silent Hill, like, I mean, not counting the UFO stuff, like, I mean, they have, like, the whole katana thing, the sexy beam, or, you know, some bizarre manga kind of influences here and there. I don't know. It's a bit of an odd thing, really. I guess maybe they think that the Western audiences will find it a little bit off-putting, but... I don't know, it's kind of weird, really. So, yeah. Throw it back in your face. As Silent Hill has to be Japanese, and Silent Hill F is good, evidently, because it is doing it in Japanese, even though the studio was Taiwanese. What the fuck is going on? Just makes me want to say, what the fuck? But anyway, have a save of the game, and teleporting. And now, my dear, we shall watch the video. So, let's settle down here and let's enjoy some movies. Videotape initialize. Oh yeah. Well now, that's rather creepy. Anyway, we're pretty much gonna head right over to the examination room right now and, well, pretty much conclude this part with a lengthy cutscene as we meet a new character. So on that note, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on the Silent Hill commentary, well, maybe this lady will give us some answers that we have long been seeking. Catch you later.
Finally, someone else who's okay.
Who are you?
My name's Lisa Garland. What's yours?
Harry Mason.
Harry, tell me what's happening here. Where is everybody? I must have gotten knocked out. When I came to, everyone was gone. It's awful.
So you don't know anything either. Great. I just don't get it. It's like this is all some kind of bad dream.
Yeah, a living nightmare.
Let me ask you, have you seen a little girl around here? Short, black hair, 7 years old?
A 7-year-old girl. What, she's your daughter?
Yes.
A 7-year-old girl. I can't say that I have. I was unconscious all this time. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Do you know anything about all that weird stuff in the basement?
No? Why? Is there something down there?
You don't know? Don't you work here?
We're under strict orders never to enter the basement storeroom. So I really don't know. What did you say was down there?
Well, it's... Damn! My head.
What's wrong? Harry?